A bank charged an 8-year-old boy $187 to deposit his birthday money. His grandfather kept the receipt for 45 years. When the bill finally came due, it wasn't $187. It was $2.2 million. The lawyer's voice was shaking, not the branch lawyer, the one they flew in from Columbus. It was 7:11 on a Tuesday morning when the phone rang in Leonard Cobb's kitchen, and the man on the other end was talking fast, the way people talk when they have already lost and are not ready to say so. Leonard picked up his pen. He did not say anything yet. The lawyer's name was Denton. He said the bank was prepared to offer $800,000, a full release, a written apology. He said it was more than fair. He said the bank wanted to put this behind them. Leonard wrote 2 numbers on his yellow legal pad. 800,000, 20,000 one. He circled the second one. He said, "Let my grandson call you back." He hung up. Then he sat for a moment with his coffee and looked at those 2 numbers. He had been looking at the second one for 45 years. It had never felt far away. Not really, not to him. But to understand why, you have to go back to November 1979. Back to a bank counter in Dobbins County. Back to a man named Carl Hillerman and a laugh that cost him more than he ever knew. Dobbins County Federal Credit Annex ran a small satellite branch on Granville Street in those days. It was the kind of place with a vinyl floor and a rubber mat at the door and a coffee pot on a folding table that nobody had cleaned in 3 weeks. There were 4 people in the room when Leonard walked in. 1 teller, 1 manager, 1 woman filling out a form at the counter, 1 man in a down vest waiting by the window. Leonard was 33. He worked 3rd shift at the grain cooperative. He did not own a lot of things, but he was careful about the things he owned. He paid on time. He kept records. He showed up early. That morning, he had brought his son Elijah. Elijah was 8 years old. He had $40 from his grandmother for his birthday. Leonard wanted to open the boy a savings account. Start the habit early. Show him how it worked. Carl Hillerman was the branch manager. He was 41, had the kind of tan you get from golf courses and not much else, and wore a tie clip that cost more than Leonard's work boots. He processed the deposit without looking up. He ran the numbers. He printed the receipt. He slid it across the counter. There was a service charge, $187. Leonard looked at the receipt. Then he looked at Carl. He said, "What is this fee for?" Carl said, "Minor account handling, processing. It's standard." Leonard says, "He's 8 years old. It's $40 from his grandmother." Carl said, "The fee structure doesn't carry exceptions." The man in the down vest by the window laughed, not quietly, the kind of laugh that says it for you. The woman at the counter glanced over. Carl straightened his tie clip and said nothing. Leonard did not raise his voice. He did not look at the man in the vest. He did not react at all. He picked up the receipt. He folded it in half. He put it in the left breast pocket of his work coat. Then he took Elijah by the hand and they walked out. Elijah asked if he was in trouble. Leonard said no. Elijah said, "Are you mad?" Leonard said no. Outside on Granville Street, the sky was a flat gray, and the maples had already lost their leaves, and Leonard walked his son to the truck without saying anything else. He buckled Elijah in. He started the engine. He drove 3 blocks to the public library and parked. He told Elijah to wait. Inside, he asked the reference librarian, a woman named Ruth Haley, who had worked that desk for 19 years, for the federal banking statutes on custodial minor accounts. Then he asked for the county's consumer savings regulations. Then he asked for every public filing First Meridian Regional Bank had submitted to Dobbins County in the past 10 years. Ruth Haley brought him 3 folders and a microfiche reader. She did not ask why. People who spent enough time with Leonard learned not to ask why. He always had a reason. He just did not always explain it right away. He read for 2 hours. He did not take notes at first. He just read. Because Leonard Cobb had a way of reading that most people did not. Slowly, from the beginning, without skipping anything that looked boring. The boring parts were usually where the important things lived. He found one. It was not long. It was not complicated. It was a federal statute from 1974, and it used the word prohibited. Not discouraged, not inadvisable. Prohibited. Service charges on custodial minor accounts under a certain balance. Prohibited. With a penalty provision, for instance, and a look-back window. Leonard read the statute twice. Then he read the penalty provision again. Then he looked at the dates on the filing history Ruth had brought him, and he started doing the math on the back of a library notacard. He was careful. He went slow. He counted only what he could confirm. When he finished, he looked at the notacard for a long time. Then he put it in his coat pocket, right next to the folded receipt. He went back to the truck. Elijah had fallen asleep against the window. Leonard drove home. He did not tell Dottie yet. He needed to be sure about one more thing before he said anything to anyone, and he was almost sure. He was close enough to know that what Carl Hillerman had called standard was not going to stay that way. He just needed to find out how many other families had walked out of that branch with a folded receipt and no idea what it meant. The deeper you go into this story, the harder it gets to look away. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because what Leonard found in that library is the part that nobody at First Meridian ever wants you to see. Ruth Haley set a fourth folder on the table and said nothing. That was how it started. Not with a dramatic discovery. Not with a locked door or a sealed file. Just a fourth folder, slid across a reading table in the Dobbins County Public Library on a Thursday afternoon in January 1980, while the radiator clicked and the windows fogged at the edges. Leonard had come back 6 times since November. Each time he asked for something different. County Commission minutes from 1966 through 1974. Zoning amendment logs. Minor account records filed with the State Banking Authority. He always came in the afternoon when the library was quiet. He always brought a thermos. Ruth never asked what he was looking for. She just brought what he asked for. On this particular Thursday, Leonard was not looking for federal statutes anymore. He had already found what he needed there. Now he was looking at the fee history. How far back it went, how many accounts, how many families. He opened the fourth folder. Inside was a list. Not a complete list. These were public summary filings, not internal bank records, but it was enough to see the shape of things. The fee appeared consistently, year after year, 1972, 1973, 1974, 1975, all the way through the records he had access to. The amounts varied slightly. The account types varied slightly. But the pattern did not vary. Leonard got out a fresh note card and started a new column. By the time Ruth turned off the back lights as a quiet signal it was time to go, he had filled both sides of the card. He estimated a minimum of 4 affected accounts over a 7-year window. Possibly 11,000 if the pattern held through branches he couldn't verify yet. He wrote both numbers down. He circled the lower one to be conservative. Then he folded the card and put it in his shirt pocket and drove home. Dottie was at the kitchen table when he came in. The kettle was already on. She had a way of knowing when he needed to sit. He spread the note cards out on the table between the salt shaker and the sugar bowl. He did not explain them. He just laid them out, in order, from left to right. Dottie looked at the cards for a moment. Then she looked at him. She said, "How long have you been doing this?" As he said, "Since November," she said. "Is it real?" He said, "Yes." She picked up one of the cards, read it slowly, set it back down in exactly the right place. Then she got up and poured the tea. That was Dottie. She did not push. She did not panic. She just made sure you had something warm while you thought. Over the next 4 months, Leonard kept going back. He found the 1967 internal routing designation for minor accounts. He found the 1971 state notice that the federal statute was coming. He found the bank's own public disclosure filings from 1975, submitted after the statute passed, which confirmed they were aware of the regulation. He put everything in a manila folder. He labeled it by date. He kept the original folded receipt from November in the front. Then in April 1980, he found the last piece. It was in a county commission amendment log from 1973, a single paragraph. A fee schedule review that First Meridian had submitted for community comment, and in the comment record, one sentence buried at the bottom of page 9. The sentence said that the minor account processing fee had been reviewed and would be continued at the current rate as a standard practice across all custodial account types, effective immediately. 1 year before the federal statute made that fee illegal. The bank had reviewed it, approved it, filed it publicly, and then kept charging it for at least 7 more years. Leonard sat back in the library chair. He did not make a sound. He read the sentence 3 more times to make sure he had it right. He had it right. He wrote the date, the document title, and the page number on a note card. He wrote the word confirmed in small letters in the bottom corner. He put the card in the folder. Outside, a truck drove past on Granville Street. Leonard looked at his watch. He had 40 minutes before he needed to be at the cooperative. He walked the folder to the front desk and asked Ruth if she could make him a photocopy of 3 specific pages. He paid the 15 cents per page. He put the originals back. He put the copies in the folder. On the drive to work, he thought about the 1974 statute. He thought about the penalty provision. He thought about the phrase "per instance" and what it meant across 4,000 accounts. Then he thought about Carl Hillerman's tie clip and the laugh from the man in the down vest. He did not feel angry. He had not felt angry since November. What he felt, sitting in that truck on Route 9 with the folder on the passenger seat, was something closer to patience. The particular kind of patience that comes when you understand something completely, and you are simply waiting for the right time to use it. Leonard pulled into the cooperative lot. He turned off the engine. He opened the notebook Dottie had given him for his birthday. A plain green cover, college ruled, and he wrote one line on the first page. Then he closed it. The trap was set. He just needed someone to walk into it. $40 had grown into something the bank could not ignore. The knock came on a Thursday morning in September 2007. Leonard was 61. He was in the garage changing the oil on the truck when he heard it. He wiped his hands on a rag, walked to the front door, opened it. The man on the porch was young, late 20s. He wore a pressed shirt and no tie and held a clipboard with a folder clipped to the back. His name was Garrett. He worked, he said, for a financial services consulting group that partnered with Meridian Federal on senior account transitions. Garrett said the number without much preamble, $12,000. A one-time buyout of Leonard's existing custodial account interests, plus a 12% premium on current balance. Clean, fast, complete. Leonard looked at the clipboard. He said, "For the accounts," Garrett said, "all historical account interests. Everything consolidated," Leonard said, "and once it's consolidated," Garrett said, "you'd receive the payout and the account history would transfer to the new structure." Leonard asked one more question. He asked whether Garrett had a copy of what exactly would transfer and what exactly would close. Garrett said the paperwork was standard. Leonard thanked him. He said he would think about it. He closed the door. He went back to the garage, finished the oil, washed his hands at the utility sink. Then he went inside and got the manila folder from the back bedroom and opened it to the section he had labeled Offers. He wrote the date, the name Garrett, the amount $12,000, and 3 words in the margin, Consolidation, waiver embedded. He closed the folder. Dottie was shelling beans at the kitchen table. She said, "Who was that?" Leonard said, "A young man from the bank." She said, "And?" He said, "No." Dottie nodded once. She went back to the beans. She had learned by then that no from Leonard was not a frustrated no or a confused no. It was the kind of no that had already been decided somewhere quiet, long before the knock ever came. From 2007 to 2014, Leonard paid his annual tax bill on the old accounts every spring. He paid it on time. He kept the receipts in a separate envelope inside the folder. He drove by the branch on Granville Street once a year, not for any practical reason, just to remind himself it was still there. He mowed the thin strip of grass along his property line twice a year. He kept his markers clear. He did not advertise what he had. He did not talk about the folder. He kept the notebook current, 1 line per year, just dates and amounts. The cooperative had closed in 1998. Leonard had retired in 2004. He and Dottie had a garden and a truck and a kitchen table and a filing cabinet, the back bedroom, and most days that was enough. In April 2014, a letter came from Dobbins County on official stationery. A class action resolution process had been established for former Meridian account holders affected by historical fee structures between 1972 and 1985. The settlement was $340 per affected account. A waiver was included on page 3. Leonard read the waiver twice. Then he read page 4. Paragraph 8, subclause C. The waiver covered all claims, past and future, including federal statutory claims. He put the letter in the folder. He dated it in pencil. He did not sign anything. He wrote in the notebook, April 2014. County letter, subclause C, declined. That same year, his daughter Claire came home for Thanksgiving. Claire was 38. She had a law degree and worked for a small firm in Columbus that handled property and contract disputes. She was not yet a partner, but she was close. At dinner, she asked her father what was in the filing cabinet. He said, "Old paperwork." She said, "Is it anything I should know about?" He said, "Probably. Not yet." She did not push. She had grown up watching him not be pushed, but she remembered the answer. She wrote it down that night in her own notebook, sitting at the kitchen table after everyone had gone to bed. She wrote, "Dad, filing cabinet, not yet." She had been waiting for the yet for a long time. In March 2021, a man named Denton arrived. He was not young, and he was not carrying a clipboard. He drove a rented sedan and parked in the gravel and walked to the porch with the deliberate step of someone who had done this kind of thing many times. He wore a 3-piece suit. He carried a leather briefcase. He accepted the cup of coffee Leonard offered because refusing it would have made things harder. They sat at the kitchen table. Denton said, $400,000, full release, clean terms. Leonard poured his own coffee. Denton said, "It covers everything from 1972 forward. Account claims, statutory exposure, the county process. Complete resolution." Leonard said, "What window are you trying to close?" Denton was quiet for 1 second longer than he should have been. Leonard said, "The 1974 statute doesn't expire. You know that," Denton said. "There are legal arguments about standing," Leonard said. "There are. Bring them." Denton set his cup down. He opened the briefcase. He put a 1-page document on the table, face up. Leonard did not touch it. He said, "Come back when your client is serious." Denton picked the document up. He put it back in the briefcase. He snapped it shut. He thanked Leonard for the coffee. He let himself out. Leonard listened to the gravel crunch under the rental car until it was gone. Then he opened the notebook and wrote, March 2021, Denton, Columbus, $400 K, declined. 3 years later, in a boardroom in Columbus, a man named Garrett, now a senior compliance director, stood at a whiteboard and told Denton and 4 other lawyers that the exposure window on the Cobb matter had not closed, that the 2014 county waiver had not captured him, that his certified mail trail went back to 1982. One of the lawyers said, "How does a grain cooperative worker have 40 years of certified mail stubs?" Nobody answered that. Denton said, "We need to call him again." On a quiet Wednesday in February 2024, the phone on Leonard's kitchen counter rang. He was reading. He set the book down. He picked up the receiver. He looked at the screen, Columbus area code, unfamiliar number. He already knew who it was. He answered, $800,000. That was the number, Denton said, right away before Leonard could speak, as if saying it fast enough might make it feel like the end of something. Leonard did not answer immediately. He put the phone against his shoulder and looked out the kitchen window. The light was flat and gray, the way February always is in Dobbins County. A single cardinal sat on the fence post at the edge of the yard. He said, "I'll have my daughter call you." Then he hung up. Claire drove down that Saturday. She was 48 now. She had made partner 3 years earlier. She drove a sensible car and wore reading glasses and carried a leather satchel that looked a great deal like Denton's briefcase, though she had bought it herself and paid half as much. She sat at the kitchen table. Leonard put the manila folder in front of her and went to make coffee. Claire opened the folder. She read in silence, cover to cover. The original filing from 1973, the statute, the certified mail stubs going back to 1982, the 2014 county letter, the waiver, page 4, subclause C, the note cards, the offer log, every date, every amount, every name. She read for 2 hours. Leonard refilled her coffee once. She did not look up. When she finished, she set the folder flat on the table and looked at it for a moment. She said, "You kept the subclause C letter." He said, "I keep everything people hope I won't," she said. "They tried to close the federal window with that waiver." He said 3 times, different shapes. She was quiet. Then she said, "The 1973 filing is the one. They knew about the statute before it passed. They approved the fee anyway, in writing, on public record." Leonard said, "Page 9, 1 paragraph." Claire put her reading glasses back on and turned to page 9. She read the paragraph. She read it again. She took her glasses off and set them on the table. She said, "I'm calling Denton Monday." The call lasted 11 minutes. Claire sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, not Leonard's, her own, and a pen and the folder open in front of her. She said very little. She listened to Denton lay out the bank's position. She let him finish. Then she told him about the 1973 public filing, the per-instance penalty provision, the 42-year certified mail trail, and the subclause C waiver that, she said, had been written specifically to extinguish a federal statutory right without full disclosure to an unrepresented consumer. Denton said that was a significant claim. Claire said, "We can prove it, document by document." Denton said, "What is your client seeking?" Claire said, "We'll send you a letter." She hung up. The bank filed a motion to dismiss in March. They argued abandonment. They argued the statute of limitations. They argued that Leonard had forfeited his standing by not participating in the 2014 county class action. Claire filed the counterbrief on a Monday morning. The hearing was 4 days later. Dobbins County Courthouse, wood-paneled room, 1 judge, no jury, 3 documents on the table. Document 1, the 1973 fee approval filing, public record. Document 2, the 2014 county waiver letter, page 4, subclause C, the bank's own language, seeking to close the federal window. Document 3, 63 consecutive years of annual tax records on the affected accounts, showing the county had taxed them every single year. No abandonment, no lapse, no gap. The judge looked at the 3 documents. She was a woman named Pierce who had run that courtroom for 17 years and had the patience of someone who had read too many motions to be impressed by any of them. Claire said one thing. The county kept taxing it. The bank kept sending bills. Nothing was abandoned. They collected fees for 11 years and now they'd like the record to disappear. Judge Pierce ruled in 4 minutes. Motion denied. The bank's lawyer reached for his phone before he was out the door. Mediation began the following week in Columbus. Denton offered $900,000 on day 1. Claire said no. He offered $1.2 million on day 2. Claire said no. On day 4, the bank's forensic accountants presented their internal exposure estimate to Denton in a side room. The number on that page was not shared with Leonard or Claire directly. But when Denton came back to the table that afternoon, his offer was $2 million. He said it as if he were placing something heavy on the table, something he could not take back. Claire did not react. She wrote the number down. She looked at Leonard. Leonard said, structure. Claire turned back to Denton. She said, he won't take a lump sum. Here are the terms. The terms were these: structured payment dispersed over 8 years, tax documented. First Meridian would participate as a primary claimant source in the broader federal review. A written remediation fund for surviving account holders from the affected period. Written acknowledgement on bank letterhead that the November 14, 1979 fee charged to Elijah Cobb's birthday deposit was a violation of federal statute, and a letter addressed to Elijah, by name. Denton stared at that last item for a moment. Claire said, it's for the file. Denton signed it. On the drive back, Claire called Leonard from the car. She said, done. He said, all terms. She said, everyone. He said, thank her for me. She said, Dad, I am her. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I know. When he hung up, Dottie was not there to hear it. She had been gone since 2019. But he could hear her anyway. The way you hear certain people long after they stop being present. He could hear the sound of the kettle. He could hear the specific way she pulled a chair out when she was ready to sit. He put the kettle on himself. The signing was at the Dobbins County Clerk's office on a Thursday. Leonard wore his work coat. The same one from 1979, replaced twice over, but always the same kind. He signed where they pointed. He thanked the clerk. He walked out to his truck. He opened the green notebook. Turned to the last page. He wrote one line. Nava 14, 1979, $187. March 2024, closed. He closed the notebook. Across town, in the local paper, a 4-paragraph article ran on the settlement. No quotes from the bank. No comment from Denton. In the coffee shop on Granville Street, a man who had once laughed at an auction read the article on his phone. He set the phone face down on the table. He did not say anything. Neither did anyone else. Some men wait to be taken seriously. Leonard Cobb kept receipts until the world had no choice. If a bank charged your child a fee they knew was illegal, would you sign the waiver? Or would you keep every piece of paper they ever sent you? Drop your answer below and share this with someone who still has their old bank statements.